Hey there, fellow resistors. Charlie Angus here, the Midas Canada Network. Today we are going to talk about how the Canadian boycott has created something unprecedented. We are crushing the Maga economy. We're crushing it. It's something that needs to be talked about more in the national and international media, the absolute success of people power and standing up to the authoritarian Maga threat. Before we get into that, though, again, we're just getting so much positive response. Here's one from Deb. Thank you, Charlie, once again for your courage and for another encouraging article. That's on the piece on the Thanksgiving weekend and the Adams Mine blockade. It is a great example of how when ordinary people stand together, united to oppose what seems to be overwhelming odds of the wealthy people and corporations to impose their harmful policies, that ordinary people can stop them. Exactly. Now is that time again. Canadians from every province across this great land must stand united together to oppose the fascist movement and threat to our sovereignty that's coming from Trump. Thank you for leading this resistance. Well, thank you, Deb, for that. Paula McNeil. Charlie Angus for the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize. Well, listen, I'm not going to stamp my feet and threaten some nation if I don't get it, like the someone else who's demanding the Peace Prize. Here's another one from Lynn. Happy Thanksgiving, Charlie. Your team and everyone who's become part of the resistance, thank you for building this community. One of my favorite quotes is that of Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. But there is also this one that doesn't get quoted as much. Never depend on institutions or government to solve any problem. All social movements are founded by, guided by, and motivated and seen through the passion of individuals. Yes, Lynn, this is the discussion about taking back the democratic responsibility of ordinary people to defend the rule of law and defend our countries and our way of respect in each other. Here's another one from Thomas Dillhunt. And this is again on the Adams Mine Thanksgiving story of the blockade and how I came into politics. What a heartwarming story. If you guys could do it, we have no excuses in the U.S. We're hoping to make No King's Day 2 the largest one-day protest in the history of our country. We appreciate the support of our northern friends and family. I live in Minnesota, just south of you guys. I've enjoyed visiting your beautiful country over the years. And when we get through these dark times, I hope we can quickly undo the harm that the Trump regime and his MAGA enablers are doing to us and our friends around the world. Thank you for that, Thomas. Liz Rock writes, I would like to thank Canadians for having guts, courage, and self-determination. I would like to give thanks to Trump for waking up the gentle, nasty giant. I give thanks to you, Charlie, for dedicating your retirement to our country's freedom. And Pandora writes, South African subscriber here. I stand with our Canadian brothers and sisters, historic allies in war. Now I wish you safety and freedom in the face of a new evil onslaught. Lots of love. So thanks so much for those comments. Keep them coming. I think what's really important, what we're trying to do with Midas Canada, is to build this sense of that we're not alone, that this is a movement that is around the globe because the threats that we're facing to the rule of law are coming in every one of our countries. And together we are stronger. And by talking to one another, we are stronger because we saw how the right built these global movements to undermine democracy. Well, we're going to build global movements to rebuild democracy. So I want to get into an update on the Canadian boycott. It's something I've been speaking of again and again because the boycott is such an important tool. It's one of the few tools that you have when you're just an ordinary person in the face of threat, in the face of powerful money, in the face of the arrogance of institutions that we're seeing like the Trump administration. You can just say, nope, I ain't spending a dime. I ain't supporting you. I'll take my money and spend it elsewhere. And when enough people do that, it starts to have a huge impact. So right now, some new data is coming out that is unbelievable. The power of the economic boycott that is crushing key sectors of the American economy, not to hurt ordinary Americans, but to put the pressure on, to force MAGA to back down, to force people to start standing up to the klepto-criminal in the White House. So check out this. It just was reported that there's been an 85% drop in American spirit sales to Canada. 85%. That's a number that is you couldn't have even imagined a year ago. But check out this. The number when it comes to wines is 96.8%. The complete market has been wiped out. It's gone. It's not coming back. We're going to get into that as well, why it's not coming back. But if you look at this chart, it's mind-blowing because you see how important Canada was to the U.S. market, how valued Canada was in terms of the economic interests of the United States. And yet we were kicked and slapped and insulted and spit at by the losers like J.D. Vance, who said he was tired of our sob stories about all our young soldiers who went off and died in American wars. We see how Trump has insulted us again and again just recently at the White House, interrupting our prime minister. And our prime minister is actually trying to kiss up to Donald and placate the dummy, and just walked all over the conversation, talked about us becoming America again, and not addressing the fact that the American wine market has just disintegrated. Because if you look at the chart, you'll see that the other international markets, UK, China, Japan, South Korea, they're not even in the game. Canada was the only game in town. And they decided that they could slap us around. Well, look what happens when you mess around with Canadians. We have destroyed that market, and it's not coming back. Now, you know, CNN blames us. Their headline is the boycott, quotation marks, the boycott is hurting innocent bystanders. The innocent bystanders being all the investors and the companies that decided that they had a huge future in selling spirits, wine, beer into the Canadian market. And again, I've got nothing against those industries. I'm really sorry that you're seeing massive hits. But I'm not sorry, because you aren't innocent bystanders. On your watch, a klepto-criminal was elected. And it's your duty to stand up and speak up. And what we see again and again in Washington right now is people tiptoeing around. I mean, we see Donald Trump is offering pardons to political friends. He's intervening in the justice system. And, you know, in Canada, it's something we couldn't even imagine. How could a prime minister just start writing out pardons willy-nilly, but writing them out to billionaires, writing them out to corporate crooks, writing them out to give those who give money to him and his family. He's a klepto-criminal. So for the Virginia distillery, CEO Gareth Moore, who said how much they had invested in Canada and how they were building this market, and he said, the market collapsed to zero. It's gone. And he said, it was like suddenly the whiskey didn't taste good because where it's from. And unfortunately, we're the victims. No, Gareth, you're not the victim here. The victim is the international rule of law. The victim here are the children being dragged out in the middle of the night and zip-tied from their apartment buildings where they're sleeping in their beds. Those are the victims. The people who are victims are the people who are disappeared at the ICE detention centers. And what they want to know is when are CEOs like you going to start speaking up? Because the market's gone. It's not that we didn't like the taste of your whiskey, it's that we are offended by a nation that will allow such naked abuse of the rule of law. As Canadians, we find it offensive. No offense to your whiskey, but we ain't drinking it anymore. Same thing in terms of the travel market that's collapsed. Absolute travel market collapse. They were figuring maybe upwards of $29 billion in losses this year. And they still don't get it. And how they cover it, they're still tiptoeing around about Canadians' bruised feelings, Canadians feel hurt. You know, no, we're not these special snowflakes. We're people who believe in democracy and the rule of law, and we don't like to be pushed around. So Jeff Freeman, CEO of U.S. Travel Association, says, well, there's a perception that travelers aren't as welcome as they once were. The most important thing the administration can do is send a message to travelers around the world, get this, that the U.S. is open to business to legal travelers. No, Jeff, you're missing the point again. We're seeing people being pulled out of lines in airports. We saw how a Rutgers professor who was being threatened with death in the United States for speaking up about anti-fascism was pulled off a plane in his own country. No, Jeff, people aren't traveling to your country because they don't think it's safe for legal people. what they see is that this is a country that doesn't make a distinction between what is legal and illegal anymore. And if it's a nation that doesn't believe in the rule of law, we got way better places to spend our money. So, number of examples they gave in terms of American business groups coming north, politicians, all trying to plead, they're worried that our feelings are hurt. Again, they're not getting this at all. Minnesota came up this summer. Oh, we were good friends. Yeah, we've been great friends with Minnesota forever, but we're not great friends with the regime that is threatening our sovereignty. Montana, they said, came up and was trying to do the charm offensive and gave up because of the negative feedback, because Canadians in those border provinces were saying, no, we're not going to go along with this. The Eastern governors came up, and Canada, we love you, come back. We're going to name some honorary streets after Canada, and no, we didn't come back. Las Vegas, they tried it. They're still not getting it because they're not saying, we haven't heard any of them say to Donald Trump, what you're doing is an abuse of democracy, and former allies find it offensive that you are more willing to kiss up to Vladimir Putin than to show respect for your neighbors. That's why we're not coming. But here's an interesting one. So Louisiana, they counted on 185,000 visitors last year from Canada, and that was $194 million in business. And they were expecting a huge market because of the connections, the Acadian connections between the Acadian people and the Cajun culture in Louisiana. And so they were going to do this big event, and man, it's tanked. And I loved how they described this. They said, the business is dropping like flies. No, we're not flies, but we're also not traveling. So Louisiana came up to check out and try and do a pitch. They came to Toronto, Quebec City, Montreal. And what they found was that the flights were still going to the United States, but airlines were not promoting or advocating the flights because it pissed people off. They didn't even want to know that there's flights available. So apparently you can still fly, but the Canadian airlines don't want to mention it publicly because people find it so offensive, the idea of travel. So what's happening now with Louisiana? Well, their lieutenant governor, Nungesser, sorry, you don't know who the guy is. Anyways, he's calling on Trump to actually apologize. Bullseye. When you have state governors and political leaders now starting to tell Trump, you got to take responsibility for what you've done, that's when Canadians are going to start to pay attention. We're not going to pay attention that you're being nice to us, so you're giving us, 20% off at Chuck E. Cheese's in Buffalo. No, we're not going back for that. We are about the rule of law and democracy. So it's interesting now we see Louisiana calling on Donald Trump to apologize for his abusive behavior. Well, we'll see how that'll go. But I think we got to start moving beyond now. We were 9 months into this nightmare. This isn't going anywhere. What's really becoming clear is that American market is gone. People are not spending money where they spent money before, and they've shifted. And so what we need to start doing, and we're going to start talking a lot more about this, we have to start talking about what kind of nation do we want to be now that we are beside a neighbor where the rule of law does not exist and people can be disappeared off the streets. What we need to start doing is shifting all of our purchasing power, which we've already started to see happen, so that we're building a better nation and not just holding the line against the threat from the south. So there's some really encouraging things, and I'm going to be speaking about this in upcoming episodes. Ontario craft wineries have found a 78% increase in wine sales. A big issue was that when they pulled the wines and spirits off the shelves at the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, the LCBO is the largest purchaser of wines and spirits in the world. I mean, I remember going in to some of the LCBO stores in the Ottawa area the day after they pulled it from the shelves, and the amount of shelves that were just bare because the amount of stock that had previously been there. Well, that shelf space is now being taken up. They're saying that the LCBO in Ontario has increased Ontario wine sales and introduced 30 new craft wineries are now getting shelf space that they couldn't get shelf space before because they were competing with American brands. 30 new wineries getting shelf space. That's amazing. 78% increase in Ontario wines sales. What we need to see, of course, is this interprovincial barriers have to come down. We want to be able to get British Columbia wines here in Ontario. We want to be able to make sure that all of our markets are integrated so that we are supporting each other and backing each other up. So we're going to continue to focus on the boycott because you still don't hear much about it in the Canadian media. But I've been trying, while working on this episode, to find a comparison to describe the nature of the collapse of the American market. And it really is without precedent. It is an absolute total collapse of the market. And we know in terms of buying, when people shift where they buy, getting that market back becomes almost an impossibility. So way to go, Donald. While you were so busy offering pardons to klepto criminals like yourself and selling your meme coins and your bitcoins, and while your family were using the White House to sell their swag, you failed the American people. And to those businesses that are suffering, you need to stop talking about Canadians' bruised feelings and being nice to us and start exercising your democratic responsibility to deal with a government that is out of control and a leader who doesn't believe in the rule of law. Canadians are sending you a message. I don't know how much clearer we have to be, but we don't deal with and spend money with fascist, gangster, kleptocrats. We just don't. It's not who we are. It's not who we'll ever be. So think about that. Start doing your job, and maybe some of your markets may someday come back. Anyways, sorry to end on a bummer note, dark note like this, but the defiance in Canada is not disappearing, and it's got nothing to do with bruised feelings. We're going to keep kicking at the darkness, keep kicking at it, kicking at it, kicking at it, and it's going to start to bleed daylight. And friends all over the world, if you aren't supporting the boycott openly, you need to support it, whether you're in France, whether you're in Australia, whether you're in New Zealand, wherever you are in Germany. It's that economic pressure that is going to finally break Maga. And once we break Maga, then we can start to build into fighting the rest of the right-wing imitative models that are out there. So we got a job to do, my friends, and we can do it, and we will do it. So, Charlie Angus, Midas Canada, thank you, merci, megwitch.